charged by the stop.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was they went from one town to the next along the coast, all the way around, and they spent the whole day in the town. And some of those stops were only 2 hours apart, like from Barcelona to Tarragona, very close. So they would leave at 8 o'clock at night and sail in the dark,
From Barcelona?
starting from Barcelona, and then go down like the next town is Tarragona, where they get in there at 10 or 11 o'clock, but they'd stay there all night. And then in the morning, you had breakfast, and you had the whole day from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night.
Uh-huh.
And each one of these towns, even though the distance was negligible between them, So I got to see each one of these. Barcelona, Tarragona, Alicante, Almeria, Cartagena, there's about 6 or 7 of them, down to Malaga, which is down at the bottom, not too far from Gibraltar,
Right.
And then that was where I got off. And Malaga's a nice place. And then the ship continued out to the Canary Islands and then terminated and came back again or something. I didn't go out there, but
What goes on in the Canary Islands?
I don't know. Tourists, I guess. It's out, it's out opposite of Africa, and
Yeah.
But it was, it was terrific because I had a full day in every significant town all the way down the coast from Barcelona to Malaga.
How great.
Yeah,
What's Malaga like?
Malaga's a nice. It's on the Mediterranean. They got nice gardens and stuff. It's a very pleasant town. And when I got in there, I got off the ship at the dock, and I got a taxi. I didn't know anything about a hotel, so I asked the taxi driver, he wanted to go into town, will you take me to some hotel? I didn't specify, I didn't know what. He took me to the best hotel in the town. He was a old grande dame, but very, they had maids sitting in the outer corridor overnight and, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't the place for me. I mean, the men all had suits and neckties and stuff. But he figured a foreign tourist, you take him to the... So after the first night, I checked out of there, and I went looking for some small, cheap place, that was, and I found it was like a converted residence or something. It's called a Californian. Some British man owned it, ran it, and I stayed there for that first time for 3 or 4 days there. And it was, more suitable for what I was used to. But what I remember, one of the towns on this trans-Mediterranean, I can't remember which one, Alicante or something, this cargo ship came down and it docks at the port, and the port is some distance from the center of the town, maybe a mile or something, So, I mean, the port, you got stuff to ship and all that. So I came down off the ship. And under Franco, even when you came down off the ship, they had a uniform. This was a woman that checks your passport and everything before, even though it's a domestic.
Yeah.
Before they let you get off the ship and step on land, So I came off, and then I started heading toward town. And some young man, probably my age, 25, 27, something like that. He had one of these motor scooters, not a motorcycle, but like a Vespa or something like that. I guess he worked there around one of the offices or somewhere around the dock. So he stopped. He said, come on. So I got on behind him. He took me into the center of town. You know, nice gesture. He never saw
Yeah,
me before.
right.
You know, I see the foreign tourist get off the ship. Come on, hop on. You know. Yeah.
Hmm.
The first time I went to Barcelona, that would have been 1952. That's where I got.
That painting.
Yeah, that's the famous Ramblas. You
Yeah.
know. I stayed at a little inexpensive hotel. That, you know, everything was inexpensive. I didn't have any. I mean, I was, you know, I had no private. I mean, you got a wash bowl, and a bed, dresser, but nothing else. It was on the main boulevard, the Paseo de Gracia. It was like well, you can't say the Michigan Avenue or something in Barcelona. It was, you know, and their lobby was on the second floor. The first floor were stores, you know,
Mhm.
department stores and stuff. And you took an elevator and you went up to the second floor, the lobby, and then they had the rooms there. The rooms were very Spartan, you know. And there was the kid operating the elevator. It must have been, what, 11, 12, 10, I don't know, something like that. But over the years later, I came back. He was a waiter in their dining room there. They had a restaurant, you know, from operating the elevator as a kid. He was now waiting tables in the dining room.
Oop.
Did I do that?
No, I just fell.
But I had come to Barcelona actually with 3 other people on the train.
Who?
Are you interested in all this? Or?
I am.
Oh, well, I was in France, and I was working my way south. I wanted to go to Spain, and I ended up down in Avignon,
Yep.
down near the Spanish border. You know, maybe an hour north of France, north of the. Yeah, I guess it's Avignon. And then the farthest south one starts with a P, Pamplona, something. So, you know, the Spanish trains have a different sized track than the French trains.
Right.
They did that to keep Napoleon from being able to transfer his troops and stuff. You know, they had a larger, it's more like American wheelbase rather than the French European one. So I got on this compartment, you know, they got a 3rd class compartment, and there were 3 other people there. We're going down the border, then you get off and you go through passport and stuff, and then you get on the Spanish train. Did I ever tell you about this?
No.
Oh, well, one was a French woman, I don't know, maybe 45, 50, and she knew Barcelona, so she suggested we stay at this little hotel that she was familiar with on the Paseo Gracia. So we didn't know anything. Fine. The other 2 were a couple. Very interesting. The young man, who was probably my age, he came from Washington, D.C. I think his father was, you know, some bureaucrat in the government, nothing. And he and another guy had flown a pair of Piper Cubs. Somebody sponsored them around the world.
Oh, wow.
You know, the 2 of them flew within sight of each other, and they went, you know, and they stopped over every day.
Wow.
And then flew around. You know, I don't know how it happened, but that was. And his wife was a Russian, a pre-communist, a white Russian Jewess from Moscow or St. Petersburg or something. I don't know how they met, got married. But she had been living after the revolution. Her family had gone to China. They were enemies of the middle class.
Yeah.
So she had been living all that time in Shanghai or someplace. She had servants and everything. It was. She had an aged father who was pretty sick, terminally sick or something. And this was 1952, and the Chinese government was going to close the border. They had a choice. They could get on this last train before the border was closed, or else you never get out of there again because...
But they'll never come back.
Never come back, Well, you never get out, So they had to leave her father. They couldn't take him, and he wasn't going to laugh, so they decided they better get out. I guess that was, So they left. It was a sealed train. They had soldiers in the station, so you couldn't get off the train and whatnot, And I guess they were working their way across Europe, back to the States. And she was concerned because she had been used to all these servants that they cooked and they cleaned, and she never had to do much of any of the housekeeping or anything, and she's going to have to run a household on her own. She wasn't looking forward to that back in the States, not going to have these servants that are paid next to nothing,
Yeah.
But so we four. It was typical, and maybe I think it probably still is in Spain. In a lot of these hotels, you can buy a full pension, 3 meals. It's a package deal along with the room, and it's a great bargain. Instead of buying individual meals,
Yeah.
you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And lunch and dinner are off the menu. They're meals.
Yeah.
So we all were on this. So we had our own table. We had our own bottle of wine and our own bottle of mineral water, and they put your room number, whatever's left there, they save it and then bring it out for the next meal and so forth. So we kept meeting for these meals at midday and in the evening, got together. We were there for, 3-4 days, something like that. And, they eat very late in Spain.
Yes.
The dining
Especially
room-
in Barcelona.
Huh?
Especially in Barcelona.
Well, not more so than in Madrid or any place else.
But they sleep for 3 or 4 hours in the middle of the day.
Everybody, they used to. That's changing, but everything closed. That was so hot,
Yeah.
Then the stores were open till 8 or 9 at night. They opened up at 5 or 6, and then there's a lot of shopping going on at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
But I forgot what I was going to say.
You went to dinner.
Oh, anyway, so the dining room didn't even open up till 9 o'clock, and people didn't trickle in till 9:30, 10 o'clock, They didn't. And this one day, this woman, her husband, was some kind of a scientist or something from France, and he was attending some kind of an international conference in Madrid at the same time that we were in Barcelona. And she said, we're going to go to the theater tonight. There's going to be a newsreel, and it's going to show something in the newsreel about this international conference. We'll get a chance to see my husband there on the screen, So we went, this is before dinner, we went to the, came back and had dinner about 10 or 10:30 after the film, so forth. So we saw her husband there. She picked him, she pointed him out. He was one of the speakers or something, I don't know. Well,
How was dinner?
huh?
How was dinner?
The food was all right. I'll tell you the one thing that bothered me in the morning. I was used to eating a couple scrambled eggs every morning, for breakfast. So the first morning I went for breakfast. You get orange juice and bread or toast, a couple scrambled eggs, and they scrambled them in olive oil.
Oh.
Not butter.
Oh.
Everything is olive oil,
Right.
And that's terrible. It tastes awful if you're not used to it, if you're not raised with it, It's not like scrambled eggs and butter. I couldn't, I had to request that they scramble mine in butter, because I couldn't stomach this olive oil taste in the scrambled eggs. I remember that. Yeah, this little hotel where we stayed, the manager there, he was a nice guy. We were talking with him, you know, there wasn't much activity. And behind the desk there, they got a great big picture of Franco up there, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably required. I don't know that. We had people, when we went into some of the stores, we had people, these local Spaniards, young people that were working there as clerks and so forth. We got talking a little bit, and they were members of the party, you know, the Phalange, because they had to be to get a job. They didn't, ideologically, they weren't part of the Franco elitist regime, but they were party members because that was the only way that they could get employment, you know. They told us that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something else. Barcelona. But one thing that was interesting, I think it was this town of Cartagena, down the coast, 2/3 of the way down between Barcelona and Malaga, you know. And we get off the ship there at the port, and then walked into half a mile or something into the town. And a lot of sardine fishing around there. And when we left the ship in the morning, they're packing, all these sardines are in trays, they're all unloading them from these fishing boats onto the dock there. And there was three gypsy women. And these guys let them do it. And they were scavenging whatever sardines fell off the tray onto the ground. They would collect them, you know. They wouldn't go into the trays, but I mean, there was enough stuff there to make it worthwhile for them to collect them and take them home and cook it, you know. So it's kind of interesting to see what goes on.
Yeah.